Hi everyone. So today, I believe it's called Abiding in God. Yes, week number 27, Abiding in God. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it and your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda often emphasized, more to his disciples than to the general public, but also to everyone generally, for it was a universal teaching, the importance of attunement. For divine understanding cannot be created, it must be perceived. To the disciples, Yogananda spoke of the importance of attunement with the Guru. To others, he urged the importance of at least attuning oneself to higher consciousness. Can an eagle rise without support from the sustaining air? Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered. And men gather them, and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall ye be my disciples. How can we abide in him? Jesus says, if my words abide in you. By words he meant not only his spoken words, but his vibrations, his consciousness, of which the words are only an expression. We must abide by the teachings, but we must also absorb those teachings into ourselves, that they become our own experience. For disciples of this path, the more in their hearts they live consciously in the presence of the Masters, the more they will find the divine presence living within them. And for all truth seekers, whether disciples or not, the more they live sustained inwardly by the awareness of God's presence, the higher they will find themselves, soaring in wisdom and joy. For the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, I am the source of everything. From me all creation emerges. Blessed with this realization, the wise, awe-stricken, adore me. Thus through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. So this evening we'll talk about abiding in God and how we can abide in God. And there's many ways. The first thing is that we want to convince ourselves that it's worth it to abide in God. That all of the different tapasyas that we see spiritual aspirants going through, or all of the different sadhana or spiritual discipline that we see people who are serious on the spiritual path, why are they doing it? They're doing it because they want to raise their consciousness. But ultimately we want to raise our consciousness until we achieve oneness with God. That means that we want to live in the consciousness of God, or abide in God all of the time. In the beginning we think, well, yes, I want to know a little bit of God, that having God as a friend would be a wonderful thing. And so we say a few prayers before we go to work, and we say a few prayers at night, thanking God for various things in our lives. But as we develop over many incarnations, we realize that more and more we want perfect joy, that the joy that goes up and down, that fluctuates, it's not good enough for us. And we realize that that joy, first, as it says in this book, that we realize that we want a higher consciousness, that we want some kind of higher joy than we already have. But then ultimately we realize that we want the highest consciousness, that we want infinity, eternity. So people do different practices, like practice japa, of chanting God's name all of the time. For the scriptures say that if we can think of God for 24 hours, that we'll be free. And when we read something like that, we think, all right, I'll give it a go. And we find that our mind, it gets turned away, that it gets drawn outward into the five senses, into Maya. And we realize that we really have a big war on our hands. But still, we realize that we want God, and that we do want this higher consciousness, and that in the beginning it's just a little struggle, and then as we grow spiritually, the tests become greater. but God also gives us the power to face those tests and to win. And so slowly we realize more and more that we want to live in God's consciousness, and that even we realize it's not enough only with japa. Even if we were just to outwardly say the name Ram, 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 and have enough focus to do that for 24 hours in a row, it would be a very good thing. But we realize something even more is needed. That we need abiding in God means that we're living in His consciousness. That we feel, as this Gita shloka stanza was saying at the end, that we feel that God is everything, and that we feel that He is within us, which means we feel everything, the entire creation within us. We also feel united to the entire creation outside of ourselves. And it goes deeper than that. That's just space. That we begin to realize that we're united to all souls throughout all of their struggles, throughout all of their incarnations, until they too achieve liberation. And in this way we begin to care about every human being, that we want the best for them, that we want their exile to be as short as possible. And we want to see what we can do to help other beings. In fact, all beings, as our consciousness grows. I was just told a beautiful story that occurred in a satsang here, a few days ago. And that was that it's a Rajasic temperament that thinks that I will help my friends, but it's a Sattvic temperament that says that I will help animals, even though I might not gain something back from that, or I will help people outside of my family, perhaps my neighbors, or perhaps people I'll never even meet. But this is a more refined consciousness, a sattvic consciousness, and this is a very good stage. But ultimately we want to become triguna rahitam. We want to go beyond all three gunas, and we want to take on God's consciousness, and we want to live in that consciousness. Now, back to this japa, that I have a friend who, every time he gets in the car to take a car ride, before he'll pray and ask God for the journey to be safe. And if you're a saintly person, you don't mind so much whether you're safe or not. You know that you're safe all of the time, and what happens to your body doesn't matter very much, and that God has a plan for you. So you're not so concerned about your body or the car, but you are concerned, are you thinking of God every time, in every moment? And you can put these little habits into place. Before you eat, you can remind yourself that it's God who's eating through you, and that whatever joy you feel, that you're offering that joy to God. Before you get in the car, that you can say a little prayer to God. And in this way, we make little habits where we start thinking of God all of the time. And as a great soul named Frank Laubach said, he had a game called the Game of the Minutes. That he, in the beginning, would try to think of God every minute. Of course, we probably know plenty of people who set alarms on their clocks and they go off with a nice bell sound or chime or something, and they remember, oh yes, God is the doer. I will remember God. Slowly, the game of the minutes, as Frank Laubach called it, those minutes, the gaps start to close up, and then we start to remember God all the time. It's a very difficult thing to put your conscious mind on remembering God all of the time. We ultimately, as we try that, see that it's not sustainable, and we see that more is needed. And in this way, we realize that we need to begin to feel God in our hearts, that we have to invite God's consciousness into our hearts. If you want to think of God as Christ, you invite Jesus Christ into your heart, into your consciousness. And then, more than a conscious thing, first it becomes a subconscious habit as those gaps close. But then deeper, as we deeper take God into our lives, that we begin to feel the superconsciousness, that it opens up within us, and we begin to feel God's presence within us. And this is a very blissful thing, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it slowly, slowly happens in meditation, as we slowly bring that joy into our daily activity. And we start just feeling, we start understanding, we don't even exist. We're not even real, except to the extent that we think that we're real. And you notice that people who have a big ego and affirm their reality and affirm their importance more than other people, they suffer. And that people say, it's all right. You have the last chapati. I don't need it. But those are the people that are happy. And so we realize that the less ego we have, the more God can come in. And really the spiritual path is that simple. The less ego we have, the more we manifest God. And another way of looking at how we can abide in God is that we want to diminish our ego. So it's very important. Whatever tricks you want to pick up along the way, do it. Chanting is half the battle. Pick up every little tool that you can to keep opening your heart, keep diminishing your ego, and keep trying to live in that presence. For God is joy. And we want to be living in joy more and more and more until life is just, it's all joy. It's unbelievable joy. And that's what God intended for every single one of us, for you, for me, for all of us. So that's enough on abiding in God. Now, the question becomes, how do we do that? And in this reading we had this evening, that Master urged his close disciples, be in tune, be in tune, be in tune with the Guru. You know, I love that I travel all around the world, and I like to stay close to Ananda, and not because of an organizational thing, but I enjoy being close to people who are in tune, people who have a high consciousness, people I've never met before. You know, one friend at Ananda, the first time I met him, he said, "Hi, what's your name?" I said, "Jemal, what's your name?" He said his name, I won't say it, I don't want to embarrass him. He said, "Nice to meet you. Do you want to go meditate?" I said, "Yes." And we went and sat at this cave up at the village up there in California at Ananda, and we meditated for an hour. None of this small talk. It was, what's the important stuff? Love God, meditate? Okay, let's go do it. And this is friends from past lives. These are people that we're in tune with. A little off topic, but it's worth it. You don't make friendships in one life. That you make friendships in many, many lifetimes. And so Master, with the outer circle of devotees, that he would urge them simply try to achieve a higher consciousness, because that's universal. You don't have to say what form is God, or do you believe in this aspect of God or that aspect of God. Everyone would agree that they want to be a better person. And so, fine, they want to raise their consciousness. But for the inner disciples, Master said, be in tune. And so gurus don't just pop out of nowhere and suddenly their disciples just come running out of the forest. Life doesn't work like that. That we know each other for many, many incarnations. Master recognized all of his disciples from past incarnations. Those disciples who were deeply in tune with Master, they recognized him right away, that I know this person. Even if they didn't remember their past incarnations, he had such a magnetism. They knew, he has what I want. I'll do whatever this man asks for the rest of my life. And then the disciples' part is to more and more deeply tune into God. Because we were talking about abiding in God, but we were talking how hard it is to keep your conscious mind on God at all times. And even though it's hard, don't give up. That we are given these challenges so that we grow, so that our willpower grows into infinity. But we do that by attuning to the Guru. And so it's hard on the outside, but when you have a human being there who's manifesting that infinite consciousness right in front of you, whose feet you can touch, then you begin to say, oh, this is possible. I didn't know that it was possible to be happy all the time. But you meet a great saint and you say, well, hey, he's happy all the time. He can do it. Well, maybe I can do it. And that's the beginning. But then we realize you can't do it. The ego can't do it. That we have to invite the Guru's consciousness in. And so we have to pray to the Guru in the secret of our soul. Those words that I say, the secret of our soul, it means when our mind is calm. Not when our mind's thinking about outward desires, as soon as I have my ice cream and as soon as the AC is set on 23 degrees Celsius, then God, then I'll meditate and give you a little of my time. No. That we have to set all those to the side so that in meditation we can find that secret place within ourselves, that secret hiding place within ourselves. That's where God abides. When our mind's very calm, when our heart is calm, means the breath is calm. In silence, God comes like a thief in the night. But we have to gain that silence. And so the trick to meditation is attuning to the Guru. That we ask the Guru, please Guru, I'm doing my best here in this meditation, but it's a little difficult to control the mind. But Guruji, you come in. You meditate through me. That I know you can do it. I see you right in front of me. You've done it. You've done the trick. In fact, the Gurus, they don't need to meditate anymore. Seva, meditation, is the same to them. They're always in God consciousness. But they go to morning meditation every day just for our own benefit, to show us the power of habit and the power of cultivating good habits and the path on how we get there. But we need to have meditation. We need to have seva. We need to be attuning ourselves to Master in seva, in meditation, feeling Him flowing through us. And as we do that life becomes absolutely easier. It's the beautiful thing about the spiritual path. In the worldly life, as you amass more and more money, more people are going to come after you and want that money, and you're going to have more and more responsibilities, which is fine. But life, if you're just trying to become the richest man on the planet, it's going to be a little bit more and more difficult as you climb that ladder. But if you're trying to become the most spiritual person on the planet, as you climb, it just gets easier and easier because you're not doing it. I have a friend who's very good at the harmonium, and one day someone was maybe praising him, or I don't know, maybe asking him, how is it that you're so good at the harmonium? And in a childlike, mocking way, he just said, maybe it's not me who's doing it. And so no matter what we're doing, if we're playing the harmonium, if we're eating, and we want to be attuning ourselves and feeling God's consciousness within us. And I want to bring it back to the guru, why we need a guru. That we can't. I was going to say it's hard, but let's face it, it's impossible to cross the chasm of finite consciousness that we live in, locked up in this ego in the five senses, to an infinite consciousness. That we're reading here, that Christ was saying that He was basically the trunk of the tree, that He was the vine, it says in here, and that we're the branches. That's a very deep metaphor that we're trying to withdraw into our inner spine. But beyond that, He says, if you abide in me, you get immortality. If you don't abide in me and turn away from me and just try to be your own branch without the sap of life flowing into that branch, your branch will wither and die, will be cast into the fire. That means that your earthly body, you have the ability to be immortal, as Babaji is immortal. But if you do not abide in Christ consciousness, if you do not figure out how this game works, and yes, the clock is ticking for you to figure it out, will you achieve an infinite, immortal consciousness before that last breath? Or will you go the way that the worldly man goes, chasing wine, money, and sex, and become the branch that gets thrown on the funeral pyre and burned one more time? And you can live as many incarnations as you want. That the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam gives us a little warning that at the beginning of a day of Brahma, I cast them all out. And at the end of a day of Brahma, many souls are still wandering in delusion. But you see, it's up to you. And yes, as you reach the end game, as they would say in chess, as you reach the end of the path, that you begin to realize it's not you, that it's the Guru's who's doing it, and you, I don't know why I'm on the Omar Khayyam trip today, but you begin to ask the question, who is the potter? And who is the pot? And it's not really an answerable question, but you do know this, that you have the free will to open your heart to receive God's consciousness, hopefully in the form of a guru. It's easier that way. Arduous is the path for those who just try to visualize the infinite and go there. So you have the choice to open yourself to the guru, to God, or close yourself. And really, that's the only thing you have. But every day we're making that choice, even if we don't know it. Even as we're choosing, I want joy today, that means we're opening ourselves to what God is joy. Or if we're saying, oh, I like being moody, it's just who I am, and boom, it closes down. And then we're closing God out. Speaking of moods, that the Master, means Paramahansa Yogananda, said two things. One, he said to Swami Kriyananda, no more moods now, Walter. Otherwise, how will you help people? And if you have a consciousness that wants to help people, that you should think about those words. And that we don't want to live in moods anymore. We want to live in the Master's consciousness. The second thing regarding moods that I wanted to say was, Paramahansa Yogananda said, when you have moods, I suffer. As we take that relationship seriously, the disciple-guru relationship, and even though Master's not in the body, He's omnipresent. He's as much with us now as when He was in a body. And that if we take our discipleship seriously and we're inviting Him to come into our lives and change us, if we have a deep, dark mood, He on some level is suffering. And so that was enough for me to say, well, I don't mind if I suffer. I don't want the Master to suffer. I should figure out how to overcome these moods. And understand moods, it's a pendulum. More moods, then we indulge in the sense pleasures over here and say, I deserve to do this and this, that I'm having a mood, by golly, that once I have this and that and all these sense pleasures, then I'll be happy. Overindulge, satiety, oh, I feel so full, just let me take a nap. Boom, swings bad. I'm so hungry, I'm just so darn hungry. Back and forth. The more the moods, the more the overindulgence in sense pleasures. Desires. Ever fed, never satisfied. Never fed, ever satisfied. Meditate on that, think on it, because it seems like, but I have to have food. I mean, everybody needs food. Your body needs food. You're not your body. Who's the master in your house? Is it this ego who Paramahansa Yogananda used to call King Material Desire? Has he usurped the throne? Is the joker running your kingdom? Or is the true prince, the true king, running the kingdom? And that true king, it is you and it's not you. But you don't want it to be you. You want to be feeling God flowing in you. You want to be flowing with God so that you know that he's the one who's doing it. And when you give him back the throne of your kingdom, then you can begin to think like, it's just a body. Yes, I have a responsibility to take care of this body, but it's just a body. And he's not in charge. God's in charge. Food is all right. No food is all right. Sleep is all right. No sleep is all right. The Master, with his infinite consciousness, shows us how that is done. The disciples affirm that, and that's good. It's a good start. I want to, just speaking of the Master showing us how things work, I told this story in Delhi a few weeks ago, but I want to tell it again this evening. That Paramahansa Yogananda once had a 500-pound wishing well dropped on his foot, and his foot so immediately started swelling. The workman moved it off, and he said, I'm going to show you what sober consciousness is about. I'm going to immediately put my mind at the spiritual eye. Withdrew his consciousness to the spiritual eye. And his face, he was fine. He said, now I'll put my mind back into the body. He felt the foot. I'll put it back up. Just a dream body, a dream body. When you have someone in front of you who can demonstrate that and show you that, then you know it's real. Then you have a true guru. And Swami Kriyananda demonstrated these same things. That he ground off this much of his hip, of his thigh bone into his hip. When the ball of the hip ground away, then inches were grinding when he would walk. But he could just withdraw his consciousness. He demonstrated again and again. And even all that karma was just for other people. It wasn't even his karma. So when you get a chance to live with someone like this, take the most of it. Open your heart to these people. Ask these people to come deeply into your lives. You don't even have to do it outwardly. If they're a real saint, inwardly pray to them. And that reminds me of another thing. Speaking of attuning to the Guru, that there's some people in this world, they just say one thing. It might just even be a casual little statement. And it sticks with you. It sticks with you for weeks, months. It changes you. It percolates. It goes around. You know that that's the right way of living, or that you want to achieve that state, or whatever the little words were. You just know it rings with truth. Then there's other people who shout and yell and want people to listen to them, and maybe Shudras come because they're attracted to somebody with a little bit of energy. But those words, whoosh, they just melt like foam back into the ocean. Why is it that some people's words have so much power? Why is it that Krishna's words remain with us and we want to read the Gita thousands of years later? Why is it that people quote Christ's words in times of suffering? Why is it that I know people who take the autobiography of a yogi and before they get on an airplane they just clutch that to their chest and feel that it's going to help them through all their fears, and that even though they're afraid of flying on the plane, that autobiography will protect them? Because all of these things have a higher consciousness. And so you too, as you develop that higher consciousness, you will be able to help people. No more moods now, Walter. Otherwise, how will you help people? So ultimately, when we're attuning ourselves to the Guru, that we're bringing that consciousness in. And that consciousness, another just little point I want to make, that consciousness, it goes beyond words. That this is the whole point here. That in America, I would say, I gave a class. 2 days ago or yesterday or whatever it was. I gave a class 2 days ago. In India, I would say, I took the class 2 days ago. But what does it matter? Those are words. You're listening behind. What's behind those words? And so what the Master's saying, it's superficial when you first just read the book, that you're trying to imbibe, understand what's behind those words. And what's behind those words is an ocean of infinity. And I think I've met 4 people who told me that they met Swami Kriyananda and his eyes, they were just windows. Oh, they just went through those windows into higher worlds, into higher understandings. The higher worlds, they're right here with us right now. But we need a guide. We need someone who's walked the path, who's been there. We need somebody who knows what they're doing. I don't know how this point's going to relate, but we need someone who knows what they're doing. So if you want to be a successful businessman, I wanted to make this point tonight. Shake hands with many successful businessmen. If you want to be a successful artist, shake hands with many successful artists. Why? You will take their magnetism. How does that work? When we shake hands, 2 horseshoe magnets are made. One horseshoe magnet, the poles are your bottom chakra and that other person's root chakra. And then the other horseshoe magnet, and both of the center of those magnets are in the heart. Then the other 2 horseshoe magnets are the highest chakra and the highest chakra of you and that other person. And the highest magnetism always wins. It's not, oh, I like that person, I don't like that person, I want what he has, I don't want what he has. When you shake hands like that, boom, instantaneously, magnetism transferred. When you start saying words that you feel like aren't really your words, whether for the good or for the bad, it's from magnetism. And that ultimately, where are words coming from? That I was working on a project just the other day, and we were facing a little difficulty, and suddenly a solution came in my mind. But I caught that, and I thought, where did that come from? It didn't come from me. I haven't done this thing before, at least in this incarnation. I don't really know how this comes, and I knew that came from Master. That by attuning myself to him with a positivity, solution consciousness, that he puts the thoughts in. And immediately I realized, I don't need to get into details of life. I just need to draw on the Master's consciousness. He put it in this way. You're stealing lots of magnetism. That's very good. And so we need to steal the Master's magnetism. He wants us to take his magnetism. We have to draw on that, and then he'll put the right thoughts in at the right time. We don't have to study too many books. Go ahead, study the spiritual books, but what you're trying to do is take their magnetism anyways. And so draw on that magnetism. There was one more point I wanted to make about magnetism, and it has flown, and that's okay. But do study at magnetism, see how it's transferred, see that it's transferred through the eyes, through handshakes, and then take the good magnetism and beware of bad magnetism. Protect yourself, and you can do that the best by always radiating out positivity, positive thoughts, just always radiating out God, always radiating out this consciousness. I am He. I am He. No birth, no death, no caste have I. I am He. I am He. Live in that consciousness. Abide in that consciousness. And then share that consciousness with the rest of the world. It's been a wonderful evening together. I look forward to next Tuesday.